Hi, I'm Lachie Samuel / Mariu. I was a FIFO mental health guy. Now I'm stepping out after my strokes. I feel it was a stroke of good luck. I feel like I've been forged by fire and coming out the backside of that, not a butt. Coming out the backside of that, I've hit a place where I realized that my life, my heart, it fits into the space of emotional health and helping people work through what they've been through, just like I've had the luck of doing, to find the fire and forge through the fire and come out the other side.
Welcome back to 50/50. I'm really delighted to have Lachie Samuel here with me today. Will you help me with your third name that I'm sure I'll mispronounce if I try, the one you've got on LinkedIn? Lachie Samuel.
Yeah, it's like when you mix dirt and water,
Okay.
it becomes muddy. And then if you just add a U on the end, it's Mariu.
Mariu.
That's the easiest way to say it.
That's perfect. Mariu.
Yeah.
Is it a Maori name?
Yeah, it is.
Ah, how beautiful. Is Lachie Samuel your a legal name, or is Lachie, I almost can't say it straight away, Maru, your real Mariu? Is that right?
Lachie, so Lachie first, Samuel middle name. And really I use that because in FIFO, if I used Mariu,
Yes.
I was getting a lot less people interested in speaking to me than it was if it was just Lachie Samuel.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so I'm Lachie Samuel because my grandparents are English Scottish, and so that's why I've got those names named
Yes.
after them.
Yes.
I'm just like, hell yeah, I'm Scottish. Like, call
Right.
me and speak to me. We're sweet.
That's right. I'm so Scottish. Wait till you see
Yeah.
me. I'm really pale. I've got red hair.
Yes.
Wow, that's such a sad note to start on, man, that you had to use Lachie Samuel to have people interested in talking to you, right? It's actually one of the things I was thinking about. I was saying to you before we started recording, of course, I always research my guests. And this is the first time I've had a guest that I haven't met before. We've never met before, right? So we
That's
haven't
so
even
cool.
had our nice cup of coffee to say hello, right?
Does that include like being LinkedIn friends? We
Well,
sort of met.
We have
on
met
the
like,
media.
oh, like that, right?
Yeah.
LinkedIn met. Yeah, we have met. We've met online. Just not the same as having a coffee.
Yes.
So we're doing it for the first time right now. And of course, when I was doing my research on you, what a long and winding road you've had. It's such a fantastic story, of course, culminating in a very, I always use this word for, even if it's a negative thing, a very exciting event about 9 months ago. So where shall we start? Shall we talk a little bit about when you were working in FIFO in the old days?
Yep.
Because I'm curious, right?
Yeah.
So what you might or might not know about me is my husband and I own a business called Discern, and we do coaching and leadership training and presentation skills and basically loving people. And one of our big clients is a mine.
Cool.
Yeah, so I've been going up for about 8 years and I've never done FIFO. And one of the things that I always greatly admire about people doing FIFO is managing that lifestyle, right? So managing the hours, managing be away for however long. I was looking in your history and you were in construction in mining, and does that mean that you were doing 4-in-1s?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually got photos. My older brother, I think he's nearly 50. He's the reason I moved here. I moved to Kalgoorlie, started scaffolding there, and then we all moved away and then went up to Karratha to do that 4-in-1. But I got photos yesterday, just looking at those, like how, when I see all the people that were there, we were just people who, because we were away for so long, we would drink every day,
Yes,
work out after we drink every day,
yes.
and we could drink as much as we wanted. It wasn't like now
Right.
where you have four.
That's it.
Four
Four
middies,
light ones.
Yeah. And so we'd do that, do the 13 days, and we'd have the one day off, and we'd go straight into Karratha. And some people would go, I don't know what you call it, the whorehouse. Some people would go to the
Yes,
pub.
yes.
Others of us would go and buy as much seafood as we could because we
Right.
wanted to eat what we could while we we're out of camp. So it's definitely, I'm very glad that they've started cutting that back and
Okay.
making sure that people spend more time at home,
Yes.
less time on site.
Yes. Well, the extremeness of it, I think what I've noticed about people on site when they're in that lifestyle, and the mine I work with largely is 2 and 2 or 8 and 6. So very, very soft compared with those construction days. But people are still pretty tough, right? And I will often marvel at them. I don't know if it's very useful because I'll often say, geez, you guys are so tough, you do this for 2 weeks and do night shift. And so I get worn out. I go up and work for a couple of days and get up at 3 or 4 and run around all day and go to bed. I'm like a zombie by the time I leave. That's 2 days, not 2 weeks.
Yep.
Did you notice that you get into a mode when you're up there, like particularly in those old days, that hardcore work, drink, exercise, play? Was it just something that your body got into a rhythm with that you were used to?
Yeah, it's almost, especially being a younger dude who started doing it, and then I had like these older guys that I looked up to who, what we all spoke about was how much did you sleep? And it's like, I only slept 4 hours, and that made you the big boss. It was like, you're the guy to look up to. You're the one who we should work like. And so it was like, how little could you sleep? How much could you drink and then wake up the next day and get zeros on your breathy?
Yes, the great challenge.
So that you could make it to work and then not get in trouble.
Yeah.
And then how hard could you work all day? And that was pretty much like what we were all about.
Oh, yeah. I was watching one of the things you were talking about on LinkedIn, and you were talking about, it was actually that YouTube video they did of you doing your work with FIFO Mental Health. Name your business for me, FIFO Mental Health.
FIFO Mental Health Group, yeah.
Perfect. And you were talking, it sounded like quite a senior manager was talking, and he was saying, look, times have changed and people have changed and what they need has changed. As I was listening to it, I was like, I don't know if people have changed, mate, or whether we're just actually acknowledging that humans are humans now.
Yeah.
Right?
I think leaders are understanding, because mental health stuff has come in, and now companies are hoping that leaders talk to people about mental health, and most leaders don't know how to.
No.
They're sort of just like, let's disconnect. You stay over there, work hard, or you're in trouble.
That's right.
Or you're
That's
not stepping up
exactly
to
right.
supervisor like you want to. And so I think it's just been that. But now we've got to a point where people are having to learn more about how they show up for their people, how they treat them, like mentally, emotionally.
Yep.
Am I someone that people look up to, that they're comfortable talking to?
Yeah, that they feel safe to talk to, right?
Yeah.
I had a lady on here, very clever cookie, Tanya Hallett, who does trauma-informed practice training. We were talking about this idea of the importance of a psychologically safe leader. And I will say, in my experience of mines, not just the one main client that we have, but I've worked on a number of mines, it's actually quite unusual for people I've worked with to feel safe with their leader, and that actually goes up the chain. So for me, one of the most important things is that people up the chain understand the impact they're having and try and get out of some usually pretty old habits that they've grown up with, right? Like the most senior leaders have often been in this really tough world for a long time, and it's hard for them to drop the idea that fear has to be a big motivator.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said when you're talking about working with leaders in mining especially, it's like about loving themselves. I think you said that. But that's when you look at a leader who's not connected to their team, who's, whipping them all the time and they don't want to speak like very clearly or in a nice way.
No.
Or treat them with respect, really.
Yeah.
For most leaders who are struggling with that, it's because they've got the stuff in the background themselves.
That's
like
right.
whether it's their relationship, the relationship isn't going too well, and so instead of like working on the relationship or working on themselves so that the relationship grows again, it blossoms and blooms, they just focus on work, because work is the thing that they can do. They can control those people. They can show up a certain way without a negative outcome on that end to them anyway. And so I think it's really cool for leaders to start going through all those different processes with the things that you do. Peter, who's been on it before, just learning from people like that, because it helps them understand themselves and their impact on the people that they're supposed to lead and help.
Yeah, I think that understanding of their impact, and you're right to say that it all comes from one's own suffering, right? So I have shared on here before, I coach people one-on-one, and I also work with them in groups. And when I'm in this particular circumstance on the mine, I will meet people one-on-one, and because they will feel safe with me, particularly over time, safety doesn't always come instantly, but can come over time, I'll get to know them, right? And they're awesome and they're upset. They're normally a combo of awesome and upset. And then I'll see them in a group and they're unrecognisable because they've got their, like you say in your videos, they've got their protection up, right? So they're smart asses, they're picking on one another, teasing. It's really tense. Like I always walk into the group room when they're all together and I'm like, I can feel it, you know, this tension. And they're all ignoring me like, I don't even know who you are because they've just bared their soul to me half an hour ago. Makes me really sad. Like you said in one of your things, I want it to get to the point where they don't need us. And that's how I feel. Like one of the senior managers said to me, I think you're sort of like more of a counsellor for these people than anything, just trying to make them feel okay and keep working. And I said, I think I am too. And I'm happy to do that job while there's not a better outcome. But the fact you need me to come in and comfort people because they're so uncomfortable, something's really, really wrong. And you're really accepting of that because the product they're digging out of the ground or making, or the almighty dollar, is king, queen, everything. So they're like, yeah, they're suffering, but we've got to get this shit out of the ground, man.
Yeah, but they're making enough money. They're making enough money. They've got a new Prado now.
That's right. Prados make everything all right, you know?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know why they'd be unhappy or anxious. They've got a Prado.
there was a leader I remember talking to who was really struggling with his relationship, and then it's like you hear that he's bought a new Land Cruiser, a new $80,000 trailer, camper van, whatever it's called, and then a piece of land as well, and you're like, dude, the only thing you're struggling with is your relationship because you can't spend time with your wife. And instead of like working on your relationship, you then come back to site even more disconnected and then try to avoid chatting to your wife because you don't feel like you're there.
Yeah.
And then it's like up and down, round and round the circle, and then you go and spend this money so that you feel a little bit better, so that you have things that make yourself feel proud. It's not the best way to move when you're in that space and you're really just missing like that connection, that love, and however else you might feel within a relationship that's good.
Yeah, I'm thinking about lots of things at once as you say that. Like we've talked about it here, and I really get from what you shared that understanding of there's a part of us, particularly in this society, that says the Prado will make us feel better. Or when I park at the airport and there's the new very expensive outdoor but undercover parking, and you walk past these vehicles, I'm like, that must be 130 grand, 150 grand, and they've all got the nameplate saying I'm awesome in whatever way. And you go, okay, all right, okay, that's bringing a certain amount of pleasure, that's fine. But what you talk about when you say they go and buy the Prado and they're not getting along with the wife or husband, the complexity and the vulnerability needed. And that's why I love what you're doing, because I go up and I'm used to site and I have a level of relationship up there after all these years. But I'm not you. I haven't done it. I haven't done the hard yards. And also, when you talk about who you were and then the way you talk, like I've heard you talk a couple of times, I've heard your snippets of your talks, and I can imagine that trust that I had to build when the people were like, who the hell are you, to me? What are you doing? You're a typical consultant. I had to get all over all of that. Whereas when I saw you talk, I was like, oh, they relate to you fast. Do you find that like fast and easy, or do you still find there's a level of resistance?
I think that's initially why I got opportunities to even go out and speak, because when I started, I was really just sharing maybe like a 5-minute talk about my story. Looking back at it now, it seems ridiculous, but the only reason I got that is because people from EAP providers, and nothing against the EAPs at all, they're awesome, and they help people a lot. Even I go to an EAP.
They're a good part of the story. Good part of the story.
But because someone was coming up and people weren't connecting or allowing themselves to connect to that person, that health professional, they just swung the bat and hoped that if I went up, I'd connect to people. And luckily, like having those opportunities so long ago, it really just let me talk to someone, and as soon as they heard my story and it being around FIFO and struggling with relationships, struggling with money, drugs, all the rest of it, while being a FIFO worker, people who felt similar would just come up straight away want to have a talk, and I didn't have any right to talk to people one-on-one. Like, I shouldn't have been doing that back then.
Yeah.
But like those people, yeah, gave themselves permission to speak up or be open enough to feel like, oof, I've finally spoken about the thing that I've been hiding in the background that I buried. And, that's really the thing that's bringing this emotion up that I'm trying to get rid of.
Yeah, and as you say it, like I get you saying, oh, I didn't have a right to speak to them, and I agree around certain things people want to talk about.
As a professional.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I do the same. If people go to a certain level, I'll have to say to them, look, I'm a qualified coach, but I'm not a counsellor or psychologist. Let's get you some professional help so I stay in my lane kind of thing.
Cool.
But I also think them talking to you and feeling safe with you actually takes me back to when you first said you used Lachie Samuel, because I'm going to try and say it, Mariu, was people were discriminating against it, because for me it would be such a strength. Like when I think about who's up on site, there's heaps of Maoris up on site, heaps of New Zealanders up on site. Yeah. And I reckon it would be fantastic for them to be able to talk to you. And then even people that weren't from that background, that experience you had of that tough, drinking, hard-working, misbehaving, all of the stuff that you shared about on your social media, no wonder it made a difference for you to come on and go, hello, I've done exactly what you're doing. I've probably done it worse. I did it for a long time. I've made mistakes. And now I have access to something else. It's beautiful, right?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a nice opportunity, especially as someone who's been through those lows in life, come out the other side somewhat, and you're still working on yourself here and there. It's nice to meet people who want to share what they've gone through. And like the more you learn about the people who are there on site, the more you understand how impactful it is to go and have those conversations. And I think like mining has definitely shifted from that now.
Yes.
Just because it's a risk. I remember being with one of the bigger companies, and we had a lot of work going to site, doing all these sessions with all these people. Mm-hmm. So all their workers plus all their supervisors, and then superintendents as well.
Yeah.
And I remember that getting cut, which it is what it is. I remember that getting cut across 2 sites purely because it got to a point where they're like, oh, if people come up and speak to you, you have to report what they're saying because that's what has to happen now.
Oh,
and so,
I see.
Yeah, like I understand what's happening, but like losing that is massive for people on site.
Is that still the case now, that the reporting is mandatory, therefore to have those conversations is difficult, or is that softened again? It's still as restrictive?
I believe it's still restrictive, yeah. It's like constantly people who are reaching out are asking if there is going to be reporting. And it's like, definitely not.
Yeah, no.
It's like the last thing I want to do is encourage someone to come and speak and bare their soul, and then all of a sudden go, gotcha.
Right, let's pass that. This is juicy. Yeah, that's right. It can't work at all. But that you'll see that happen where there's a need, and then people with a particular way of thinking go, right, we've got to note this, we've got to mark it, we've got to have it be better, but the way they make it better is by formalising things that actually need love, and it puts another strictness around something that actually needs softness, and, we see that in lots of different ways. When I think about your story, I think, okay, you're living your life, then you do this hard work, this 4-in-1 kind of roster, you're running around, misbehaving, having the time of your life, but not in a great way, right?
Yeah.
Then you spent some time out of the mine, and then you come back in and you're doing this work around mental health. So since the exciting thing 9 months ago, which we'll talk about next, you've talked since then that you've had another level of breakthrough, but you clearly had a lot of breakthrough prior to that, right? Because you're already sharing then, this is where I see what I've done wrong, this is where I've hurt previous relationships. You were already aware of all that, weren't you?
Yeah.
When did that... what am I doing? When did that moment come in the story?
I think that was after I had a daughter, maybe 2014. Had a daughter then, and then her mum decided to move away.
Okay.
And like at the time, there was hate, there was anger. It's like, why are you doing this to me? But now, looking back at who I was, it makes sense that a woman would want to leave. It's like, why would someone want to stay around a man who, I would say a man, but like a boy,
Okay.
who was treating people terribly?
Yeah, right.
So it makes sense. And when they moved away, and then like losing contact with my daughter at the time, I found out maybe 6 years later she's not actually mine. So that's
Oh,
an up and down.
okay. Oh, wow.
But having that and having that period of like 1 to 2 years where I had to really constantly try and make contact and have those conversations, I think going through that, going to see counselor, a counselor passed me on to someone else, a psychologist, who made me realize that I went through stuff as a child, you
Yeah.
know, like being taken advantage of as a child.
Yes.
Going through that, I think going to the psychologist and then learning that I had to work on myself mentally to not be so angry, not be so upset, not having contact.
Yes.
I think going through that process helped me understand, holy moly, dude, there's a
Yeah.
lot going on, and a lot of it is because of you.
Wow.
So,
That's so amazing that you were able to, in that moment of pain, a lot of people had doubled down then, right? So they just sort of harden up further, become more bitter, keep blaming the other person, whatever it might be. But something about you went, I'm going to talk to someone. And then when they talk to you, when that psychologist or counsellor went, hey, Lachie, what about this? The fact you didn't then stop counselling, go, no, that's bullshit, walk away. The fact you were brave enough to go, what do you want me to look at? That would have been a very painful moment or moments to look at what had happened to you, why you were like you were, how you were mistreating people. Like the courage is pretty impressive. Not everyone will do that by a long shot.
yeah, and I feel very lucky. Like I reached out to the guy that was with, it was like 2 years of that. So I reached out to him and like reconnected because he's, you know, from the family, and was like, oh, I'm just going to touch base, like talk to you about this. And for some reason, he was like, whoa, I totally forgot about that. And then we started talking about his childhood, and he had the exact same thing. And it just, yeah, it
Even
flows off
reaching
to a
out
bunch
is
of
like,
different people.
whoa. Like when you reached out, that alone is so unusual.
Yeah, I think I've always gone through a part of me that when an emotion pops up and it's like, I don't like that. I don't like how that feels. That doesn't feel good. I'm just going to go and do that.
Yeah.
And like, not always in the best way. That's why I was someone who didn't like who I was or how I treated people, how I showed
Yeah.
up most of the time. But having that pop up and wanting to like go through it no matter what is probably what helped me move along faster than I think I ever would.
That's a wonderful way of saying it. What I was thinking was there's a part of you that has always been open and brave and wanted to move through stuff. And that's exactly how you said it, right? There was, whether it was a positive expression like now or maybe not so positive historically, but you're like, hang on, I don't like that. I'm not going to run away from it or shut down. I'm going to go through it, right?
Yeah.
And then that manifestation of that through it has become more and more positive. Feel like I've done too many teasers about the exciting event 9 months ago, so people who know you will know of this.
Yeah, I did a backflip on a trampoline. It was the best.
Honestly, it was so good. Without a harness. Landed it, 10 out of 10.
I definitely wouldn't have.
So when we were talking before the podcast, I said, what do you want to talk about today? And you said, look, we can talk about all the different stuff I've done, but probably the journey since what happened last year. So why don't you tell us how much you'd like to say about what happened, and then we'll go into what's come out of that.
Yeah, I think July last year. So this was at a point where within FIFO Mental Health Group, we were doing like so well for us, not having to work much as well. So I got to a point where I'd stopped going to site a lot. It was 2 days a week at the most. We'd nearly paid off our house and everything that we had, all our assets. And so I remember meeting with my business partner and saying, brother, I'm looking at like selling this. I feel like I'm connected to my girls, and I want to step out of this space and just focus like on my life and my house. And
Okay.
so I remember having that conversation, and then maybe like 2 weeks later, flying back from site, having a really sore head. And then one day, I think we went to my daughter's cross country. Remember watching her run, like really loving being there on a Friday afternoon, watching her go for it. And then we got home, and I was working on my laptop in the shed. My partner Katie was working out, and then my daughter had her iPad,
Yeah.
just like the brother upstairs,
Right.
had the iPad.
Yeah.
And she was playing. I just remember thinking, holy moly, like my head's so sore, I can't even stand up.
Oh, wow.
And so I went down into the house. Remember thinking, I'm just going to lie down on the couch. That went on for about 3 days, like lying on the couch, not being able to move. Went to the hospital, and then found out that actually in the hospital, the doctor that I saw,
Yeah.
she didn't want to do any tests. She's like, it's going to be okay. There's nothing to worry about.
Oh.
You should be fine. It should be just like a sickness that you'll overcome.
Okay.
I'm like, sweet. And then I told her I went to a chiropractor, and she's like, oh, no, chiros, no, they would have wrecked your neck. Come on, let's have your scan, your MRI.
Wow.
And so I did that, had my bloods done, and I come back in after the scan, and she's like, oh, good news. There's no problem. It's not from a chiropractor. Don't worry about that. I was like, wicked. I'm going home.
Yeah.
I'm going home. And then, yeah, she goes, oh, but the other thing is, like, your throat is clotted. It's, like, very bad, and your brain is clotted as well. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Does that mean the clots can go away? And she's like, no, I don't know how to help you. We're going to have to, like, send you across the road to Fiona Stanley. Oh, okay. So I went over there, and then just went through an up and down process. Got sent home with blood thinners. Spent another week at home, and then ended up back at hospital. And I remember being in ER at Fiona Stanley with my partner, and them telling me there was nothing wrong. Like, go home, it'll be fine. Have these painkillers.
Okay.
And I don't remember anything from there, like 3 months onwards. My partner just said, you lost your vision while we were sitting there, and we got told still to go home. You lost your speech while we were sitting there, still got told to go home.
Oh.
And then you couldn't stand. And then I was like, oh, God, that's pretty bad.
Yes.
And then eventually we got taken through and sent to the city. And stayed there. And so those clots, they're pretty up and down. Like I think I was in so much pain because my brain had bled out, and there was so much risk that I constantly kept going back to sleep. And then I'd wake up, and there was like family from New Zealand because, you know, my family, my partner got told that I'm probably going.
Oh.
So like even just waking up from that and seeing people, it's like, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
It costs a lot to be here from Auckland and New Zealand. And it's like a 6-hour flight. What the heck? And I didn't realise what was going on.
No.
I just remember waking up and like breaking stuff and being angry, which I'm told afterwards is like just a normal part of like clots and seizures.
Yes.
Yeah, but one day my partner and parents who'd been there like 24/7 just to sit with me, they thought, cool, he's come back, he's good.
Okay.
Let's go home, have a rest, let's all go have a sleep, and then we'll come back. And my friend, my business partner, Corey, come in to see me, and I remember going out, lying on the bed while he was there, and then apparently just like lost my speech again. He got a nurse to come in, and then they were like, oh shit, this is not good. Send him downstairs. He needs to have his brain done, like taken apart and obviously like surgery done.
Yes.
And I'm just very lucky that the surgeon was already helping someone doing a surgery.
Yes.
And so they couldn't put me in straight away. And I don't know any of this. It's just what I'm told.
Yeah, right.
While I was laying there waiting for my turn, the surgeon comes out and goes, can you just like go scan him and make sure he's 100% going to have to come in, because I was on blood thinners. And the hospital called my parents and my partner and said, come in, like, he's on blood thinners.
Yes.
He's probably not going to be here. And then thankfully I had that scan, because they were like, it's not as bad as we thought. Like, let's take him back up. He should be okay, hopefully.
Okay.
And so I just feel very lucky that, like, out of all the things that could have gone worse, it didn't. And all the stuff that I've been through, like how hard it is to learn how to speak again and walk again, and even my vision come back, like, that's been pretty wicked. And I'm very grateful for everything that happened, because the person that I was someone who cared a lot about mental health, emotional health, helping people, but I was constantly putting on weight because there were issues that I had in the background personally. Because I didn't feel good enough for, like, myself, my dad. I didn't feel like a manly enough kid. And all of that, right? I didn't feel good enough. So I used alcohol and all those sorts of things, making money with the business. I used all of that to feel like proud of myself, but that never really filled the void that I had. And so going through that, as crappy as it was, it flipped everything so that my number one focus become, like, my own health. It's like, dude, you're very overweight. Like, you're insulin resistant. You're not in a good spot. And so since then, I've lost, like, maybe 30-something kgs, gone full carnivore. I eat treat meals when I want to eat treat meals.
Good.
Focused on, like, exercise and that sort of thing. And because of that, it's made me feel heaps proud of myself, even though I'm not at a space where what I saw as my goal. It's like I'm moving towards where I want to be, and that's what I'm proud of. And I'm actually, like, very happy with where I'm at in life, because I've focused on myself, number one, my girls, number two, and my parents, number two. And then, like, last way down the track is work, and when I'm getting back to that. So
you can. So firstly, I just have to say, whenever we think of a health event happening, I suppose because of fiction, you think it's going to be this simple, clear process. And that story was the opposite of simple and clear, right? It was unknown, so much time, you only being aware, obviously, for part of it, all these things happening in your mind, the fear for your family, really, really, it wasn't. I had it that it was an event. I had it like this. You have a stroke. You're in hospital. You start recovering. The version you just told is like, whoa, hang on, like, you're meant to be going home and someone didn't know what it was, and then they did, and it's lucky someone did.
I tried to run out of the hospital.
Did you?
Because I thought I was okay, and that my partner was keeping me stuck at the hospital because she didn't want me at home.
Oh, part of what was going on.
It sounds crazy saying that, but, like, when we talk to the OTs, they're like, no, that's normal. That's a part of, like, going through strokes. You have that sort of behaviour.
Because it's your brain being messed with, right?
Yeah.
And your brain is where ideas come up like, I think you don't want me at home, so I'm going to sprint out of here and beat you there.
Yeah, I thought you loved me. Take me home.
Take me home. Why have you still got me here? Because I want you alive. I don't believe you. So before that happened, I can hear you were literally looking to sell your part of the business. You had felt like you'd got to that financial level of success, security. And then having had this massive physical event and the recovery from that, it's like we were talking about with the Prado, and then going to, hang on, what does the Prado do versus self-peace and self-love? And when I was thinking of talking to you today, I thought, Tamara, you're going to have to be careful you don't make it about you, because the theme is really similar for me at the moment around what does success look like.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What does it look like?
Well, part of my mind would say being very well known and very rich and very lots of things, but I know that part's a little bit confused. So now I spend more time in success looks like a happy life, happy relationships, good health, longevity if I can have it, and sanity. And those two parts still fight in me. I haven't got to the point.
What two parts?
The success is the Prado, simple way of saying it. And success is a truly happy, fulfilled life. And depending on where I'm up to on a particular day, I will either be in that grasping it's never enough, or I'll be like, oh, hang on, like I'm already successful. I don't have to do anything else, I was even thinking driving here this morning, because my thinking can be so crazy, and I know it's literally what we're talking about and what a lot of us do. But I was driving here today and I was like, I don't know why I worry about, getting number of likes on LinkedIn or whatever. And then I went, hang on, people are on LinkedIn to make their businesses successful, and my business is so successful I don't even need to promote it on LinkedIn. And it was one of those, like, hello, nut job. Like, it was really great to see it, but it also is an example of the confusion in my thinking when that insatiable because I have the not good enough, absolutely, and I have enough history around where that came from. So that when that's running, it's impossible to fill that hole, right? Like there's never enough. One of my girlfriends said to me months ago, how many likes would be enough likes? And I went, there's never enough likes. It was a great moment, right?
Yeah.
There's never enough. That hole is unfillable, but it still wants to get me.
And LinkedIn's different. Like everyone that's reached out and given us work, especially for like the bigger companies, they've never liked anything that I've posted on LinkedIn, yet I'll catch up with them, have a coffee, and he'll be like, man, I watch your videos every day, especially when I was posting one every day. It's like, can you like just like one?
I know.
And they'd all say, oh, no, I don't do that. So it's just like part and parcel. But I think wanting to achieve more, have more assets or more of those things, it makes sense if it's going to fill that void, right? Like it doesn't mean that's the way you should move, but that's why people do what they do, especially if they're working FIFO and making more money. If there's a gap there, you've got money here to fill it. So it's just like understanding what the problem or the past memory is that you're attached to, which is not making you feel not good enough. And then it's like, what emotion is attached to not feeling good enough? Is it sadness? Is it one of those? And if you can like fully feel that and allow it to be there without going, oh crap, I need a drink or I need to get out and buy something.
Right.
If you can feel it, that's the thing that your body is looking to do. It's either looking to like push that to the side and feel something else, or like fully feel it so that it goes, oh, that thing isn't as scary as I thought it was. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel anger. And then on the other side of that, once you feel it and your body goes, oh, okay, it's cool, it's not a risk, and let it go, then something comes in to fill the gap that was there. And that's a constant up and down of life. It's like the emotion will come in. Do you have the ability, the willingness to feel what's there, even if you don't want it to be there? And as soon as you do that, that moves on, and then something else comes in and fills that gap. And it's usually like happiness, gratitude, contentment, peace and love are probably like the biggest ones that come in, especially when that emotion and that moment from your past is something to do about you and whether you do feel good enough. If you feel like you're not good enough and you feel it fully, you let it go, you're not fighting that anymore, even if it's just for, a couple minutes, an hour, a day. And then gratitude or contentment, peace and love can fill that space. Even just for an hour is better than nothing.
Yeah. And that what you're saying is part of the work that you're doing now and part of what you can offer to people now. And when you talk about that, I've been talking here about the left and right brain and Steve Biddulph's book about the wild creature mind and Martha Beck's book about, what's it called? After anxiety? Beyond anxiety. So the same premise is in both of these. So we have a feeling come up in our body, we have an emotion that comes up in our body, and most of us will, like you said, try and operate over the top of that. So I don't want that. So I'll drink, I'll smoke, I'll buy Prado. I'll avoid that pain, right?
But porn for a lot of dudes.
Porn, that's right. And porn like watching a gynecological exam. I'm clearly not a porn person because I'm like, I feel like I'm a doctor watching this shit, man. Like I don't need that so close up. but I'm alone. I know I'm alone. So porn, drinks, drugs when people aren't at work, Prados, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
But I cannot feel that feeling. And I think because you're practiced now at allowing yourself to feel, I'm practiced at it, you can get in touch with it, feel the pain of it, feel the sadness, feel the whatever, the intensity of that, and you trust and know it's going to pass, it's not going to kill me. I think when you haven't done that, I think it's very scary to say just feel how you're feeling, because I think people think if I feel that, I'm going to die. Like it's going to make things a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, it's what I used to do. It's what I've done on FIFO. Like when people want to have one-on-ones, I just do that all the time. It's just we never talk about what we're going to do. People just want to talk because they've heard a story and they feel ready to finally share something. And it's like, cool, let's talk about it. And then we start having them breathe, like do the 6 breaths, connect to your body, number one. And then it's like, what are the sensations in your body? What does it actually feel like? And once they breathe and feel that, and they're not tensed up or they're not fighting that tension in their trap or in their back, they can let that go mentally anyway. And then we say, cool, what's the emotion? Like, what emotion do you feel? And largely people will say anger.
Yes.
Like, I'm angry.
Yes.
I was like, okay, cool. What's under anger? Because anger is a response to the emotion that you have.
Yes.
Is it sadness? Is it whatever? And for most people, they'll go, oh, shit, it's not anger. I'm going to go with this one.
Yeah.
They'll tell me a couple different emotions, and I'll just ask a few questions, and then we'll choose the one, and then we'll breathe through that 6 breaths or however long it takes for them to accept that sadness or something like that is there. And once they feel that, we can either go back to a memory that they choose, that they feel pops up, and have them breathe through that and feel that and see what emotions attach to that as well. Or we leave it there and we get them to breathe again. What's the physical sensations? What's the emotion? And usually people go from the low vibration emotion to the emotion that's going to be better for them during that day, especially if they've just flown into sight and they've got 8 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks left.
Yes.
Just to go through that moment is pretty helpful, but you can't expect that you do that once with someone and their life has changed.
Yeah.
It's just got to be like a practice that you keep practicing so that you
Yes.
teach yourself how to feel what arises
Yes.
instead of like fighting it off. Because the people who have those low vibration emotions pop up,
Yeah.
if they don't want to feel it because that shouldn't be there, they shouldn't feel this way, then they're probably going to treat other people in a certain way so that they change that emotion.
Yes. Yes.
If they go into the anger that's sitting above it and then they treat someone terribly or they
Yes.
disconnect from everyone
Yes.
and drink or whatever, then they immediately change that emotion. And I guess that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's what a lot of people do. I don't think most of us have been taught how to get in touch with our emotions and do what you're talking about because our parents weren't taught it. And then before, no one ever really did that. Certainly in my historic family, that wouldn't have ever happened. My parents would have never done that or never taught us. So I'm the first generation to even start to play with it.
Hell yeah.
Right? Like that. It's very cool. I love the saying. Have you heard the saying, when it's behind you, it's a tiger, and when it's in front of you, it's a kitten?
No.
Yeah. So this is perfect for this, right? You think, if I feel that, I won't be able to handle it. But actually then you feel it. Like I did it years and years ago. It wasn't even on purpose. I was just so tired. I've been a trainer for 20 years and I've always been anxious, always worried what people have thought of me. And I used to wake up 4 o'clock in the morning before a new group that I was worried about or a subject I was worried about and just feel this incredible fear, but then not really feel it. I'd do the layer upon layer resistance thinking. So you shared in your story that when you were feeling bad historically, you'd take it out on other people. I would take it out on myself. So people would say, oh, she's the most relaxed, friendly trainer. And internally I was just dying, right? But this particular morning, 4 o'clock, I wake up like usual and I start to tell myself, why are you worried? You've trained for years. You're good at it, right? Just picking on myself. And I don't know why, gift from God or something. Something in me went, just fucking feel the fear. Don't fight it for a minute. And that was the worst time ever that I tried this feeling your emotion thing, because I sat on the edge of the bed, Andy, my husband, on the other side, and I sat there and I was like, it was so physically painful in my chest and stomach. I was so upset and I was like, I can't feel it. I can't feel it. And I was like, just stick with it, right? And this incredible physical pain, and then something eased like that. And then I went, oh, I don't feel as afraid. And then I have never had that intensity of fear ever again since that moment.
That's cool.
Right? So I totally agree with you. It's not like that, these things, right? Like a lot of famous online people will be like, just do this one thing, you're done. Wonderful idea. But
I did it once.
I'm
still angry.
Right? I'm so angry. I don't know why I did this one practice with Lachie and now I fucking want to kill everyone. It didn't work.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's about repetition, right? Like I've said to Danielle, the stuff in my brain that's not that, avoidance, self-criticism, all the rest, that's like a rope. The neurons are so strong, right? And then I have this one little bit going, you're all right, just feel it. It needs a bit of love and strength, right? So I'm very excited in what you can offer people, because I don't think I would dare to, with the people I look after and coach and talk to and sort of counsel, I don't think I would have the courage to say to them, let's have an experiment with how you're actually feeling, because I'd be scared. They're like, what the fuck, get away from me. Yeah. Whereas from what you're saying, it's something you've already done a lot with people and can offer to continue to do.
Yeah, it's like before I started doing the speaking, we just do one-on-ones, like one-on-one coaching, and pretty much start with that just to see where they're at within the one-on-one, whether it's Zoom or in person.
Yes.
And that was really helpful, because then, like, straight away I'd understand where they are. Straight away they could be open and vulnerable and share, like, what the actual problem is.
Yes.
So then for the rest of the week, the thing I give them to work on is based on, okay, this is right here.
Yes.
Let's peel the layers back for this, whether it's like yourself, your relationship, or you don't feel good enough for mum and dad, whatever that is for you, we'll do that. And so as grateful as I am for everything that's happened in FIFO and like all the opportunities that we've had, especially with FIFO Mental Health Group and the Sundowners, I'm stepping back from FIFO. Like, as much as I love FIFO and I've been a part of it, having gone through the rehab I've had to go through after the strokes and realizing, like, holy moly, I wasn't focused on myself and my health.
Yes.
What that helped me do was really, like, understand that there are still layers I hadn't worked on.
Yes.
Like the emotional layers. And so stepping back from FIFO Mental Health Group and FIFO, because I don't feel like mental health is my focus anymore.
Got it.
I always had the emotional, like, one-on-one sessions with people, but I never really spoke about it or told people what we were going to do. We just did it, and it was awesome to see them, like, let something go.
Yes.
But now stepping away is like going back to one-on-one coaching and focusing on that.
Okay.
And it's definitely not the money that I was making having a business that was FIFO.
Yes.
But that's not what I want. I want to have time to help people, but mostly have time to, like, be with myself, cook my bloody steaks every day,
Right.
work out, go for walks with my girls, drop my daughter off from to school, pick her up from school. It's my favorite thing when she runs to us when we pick her up. Like, focus on that stuff and paying off the little bit of the house that we owe.
Yes.
And that's that. And I can just focus on coaching people, making sure I'm in a good space so that when I show up for them, they're not having to worry about me being in a bad place too. It's like, cool, you're struggling with this. Like, as long as we move through this,
Yes.
like feel it fully, it will release. And the more you do that over the time, the
Yes.
more the body and the brain won't associate sadness or whatever it is with
Yes.
risk. And so
Yes.
that becomes a norm, just like every other emotion that you have. And if that becomes a norm, then you're on this like level playing field
Yes.
where it's flat and you're not constantly going as up and down.
So when any emotion is acceptable, the resistance doesn't come up, and the resistance is where all the pain is, right? It's not actually the emotion; it's the resistance to that emotion. Like I used to say, you shouldn't feel scared. You've done this for years, rather than just feel scared. Like Thich Nhat Hanh, the famous Buddhist monk who sadly passed away now, joyfully passed away. He used to say, about if your lettuce is dying, you don't yell at the lettuce, right? You water the lettuce, but we yell at our lettuce. Snap out of it, It's interesting also you said anger, because I think for women they're not meant to feel anger, and for men they're only allowed to feel anger. So we have these different rules, right? So you meet really grumpy men a lot, really grumpy.
Yeah.
But
I think it's dependent on who your parent is.
Ah,
Because if you've got a parent who has been brought up with someone who was very aggressive, then it's like, well, I know that my dad was too aggressive. That's not okay. So I'm not going to be aggressive.
yes.
I'm going to like bury that anger and never feel it,
Right.
never express it. And then you have a kid and you're like, don't be angry.
Yes.
Don't you get upset with me.
Yes.
Shut up.
Yes.
Hey, I'm not just talking about my childhood, but
Right? Yeah, it's so true, right? It's like, what did I remember doing a course 1,000 years ago, I've talked about here, doing some landmark, and they would say, you watch your parents and you decide, I'm going to be like you or not like you. And you pick a parent and you go, which one's having the better time? In my case, it was my dad. I'm like, I'm going to be like you. Oh, what a decision to have made, right? There's been so much cleaning up to do because yes, he was the more powerful. Yes, he was the more confident. But, I always say he's the nicest person and the worst person in one person, right? He's very caring and generous and loving and terribly belittling and abusive, right? When I got married to Andy, I'd been rolling out my dad's routine of how to be married. We hadn't been married long. He goes, this isn't working very well for me. This is my husband. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you're not really treating me very nicely. And I go, but this is how marriage works. We get married, argue, hate each other, but do it for like 60 years.
wow.
And he's like, no, I'm not up for it. And I was like, oh.
How cool that he could even say that.
Well.
It doesn't really happen in like many relationships. Hey?
Well, we've got on our wedding rings always back to happy, ABTH, and one of the gifts for both of us is we've always been able to go, hang on, with one or the other, what's going on? That's not very cool. And then the other one will actually look at it. Pretty miraculous, actually.
That's wicked.
It is. I'm both.
No wonder you do what you do.
Well, okay, perfect segue. So you were talking about on one of your things Peter Crone, right?
Yep.
I've watched a lot of Peter Crone. He's really, my algorithm knows I like Peter Crone because every 2 seconds I've got Peter Crone, right? But he's easy to like. He says some very clever stuff, and he says some of the things I really believe in around consciousness and all the rest. His latest clip I happened to see this morning, this woman comes on and says, I really have no self-esteem and I'm a coach. I'm laughing because that's kind of me too, right? And he says, where'd you get that from? She said, well, my dad always said, you're a loser, you're always going to be a loser. I didn't have that from my dad. And Peter says, oh, well, what about if we saw that wasn't true? And, of course, they do like they do on these videos, like instantly she's better, Yeah. And she goes, I'd realise I'm fantastic. And he goes, we're done. And I'm like, I feel like this might revisit her at some point, but great start. Anyway, and he says, when you're coaching people, it's hard for you to find... be compassionate with them because you're not compassionate with yourself. And what I'm thinking about as you're talking, the more you grow and the more you learn, the more access you're able to give to people, because as you go, I can feel whatever emotion and I can be with it, work through it, not try and escape it, not try and bully my way out of it. Then, of course, you're going to give people more and more access to that in themselves, right? And as you go, the thing I want to do is this, not to look good or be successful or be enough, but actually what my heart wants to do is this, then it's a much cleaner process, right?
Yeah. I've had a lot of people get upset with me when I tell them, hey, I'm stepping out of FIFO mental health.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm leaving the business for the guys that are working in it, and they're going to be the faces of it, and they're going to do everything there that they want to because they care about it.
Yeah.
And people get upset,
Is it because they're going to miss you?
Not because they're going to miss me, because they think, why the heck are you doing something that's been working well and choosing something else?
Oh, yes, yes.
And I think when you get to a point when you realize I was just moving in this direction because that was making me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And then I finally realized, like, I remember maybe a couple months ago was the first time I ever, because I do it every morning, the body emotion stuff. First day ever, I wrote on the notepad at the end of it, because I write the emotions and then I just write whatever comes up after it. And I said, I feel like I love myself. And I looked at that, I was like, what the hell? What? I'm not supposed to do that. That's gay. That's
That's awesome.
That's gay ass. Like me thinking that to myself, I'm like, dude, what?
Oh.
But like feeling that and that come up every day for like the next 2 weeks, which I wasn't used to. And then realizing that, I realized, holy moly, like I like myself so much that I don't have to go out and do these things that I was doing to finally feel good. And like that's been a massive win. So as terrible as it's been, like even childhood and the stuff when I moved to Australia, and then going through the last 9 months, especially of rehab, and not knowing if I was going to get the vision or the speech or the movement back. My memory, like Jesus, I still forget sometimes my partner's name, my daughter's name.
Yeah.
Someone will ring me, one of the bros from New Zealand, and I know their voice.
Yep.
I sort of know who it is, but then I go, I'm sorry, who's this? Like, who are you?
Yeah.
And they'll say who they are, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Do I know you from FIFO? And then they just go, I'll call you back. And then 5 minutes later, I'll go, oh, shit, it's so-and-so. It's Andy from the Gold Coast. And I'll call them back and say, I'm so sorry, bro.
Yeah, wow. Is that frightening for you when that happens? Or is it something you've become used to?
I've become used to it because I know short-term memory is the memory that I'm still working on bringing back. Like everything else has been wicked and I've got so much back. But there are just portions that aren't there because that part of my brain is still like clotted.
Got it.
And I'm not using it. Blood can't flow through that part of it. So it makes sense. But like going through all of this has been awesome. Like awesome for me to change my direction in life, to enjoy life, to love myself, to be heaps more connected to my partner and my daughter and my parents. And then just trust that even though I'm moving out of something that had like the money that would have made me feel happy, I'm moving into a space that I'm unsure of right now. But it is what it is, and that's where I feel like I have to go because I love it, I enjoy it, and then hopefully it's going to like help people as well. Yeah,
it totally will. It's super exciting, super inspiring. Also, you can now work with perimenopausal women because we have exactly the same problem you do.
Oh, my God.
Honestly, you listen to my podcast, I go, you know, that lady, like last week we were talking about who it was Julia Zamero, right? So this is how I do it. So you know that lady on Australian television, she interviews celebrities and she's really funny and she's also on Fisk. And then Danielle goes, yeah. And I go, do you know her name? She goes, no. And I go, you know that lady? And we both go, yeah. And then we go, you know it, everyone. And move on with the conversation. It was Julia Zamero. I got that maybe a week after I'd said it. So you're doing so better cool. 5 minutes later.
I was laughing because I didn't know what part of it I was the same as. Yeah, I was like, okay.
I do. Memory. Listen, I do memory. Still quite masculine. I know I said I love myself, but I'm actually still a man. Look at this beard. I can grow it longer. Yeah, it's really inspiring that... you know, the reason I said, oh, it's risky, I'm going to talk about myself today is because that same experience of, you know, I've been a trainer and a coach and a speaker for 20 years, but the reason I've done it for so long is because of where I thought I got my worth from and what I was naturally good at. And I went to this retreat and I shared about it here, come back from the retreat and go, hang on, if I don't have to prove myself, what do I want to do? And it's like, I don't know. And the advantage both you and I have is having this revelation at a time when we've had or have a successful business, there's that freedom, right? Because because you created what you created and all the hard work and all the courage you had to look at yourself and help people and make a financially successful model, that's freed you up to go, what do I want to do in my heart? And you can still eat, you still have a house, you can still look after your partner and daughter. And I'm a little bit the same. So last time we shared, I said, I feel like, when someone leaves a spaceship and they've got the line and they're in space like this, and you go, I hope this oxygen's going to keep coming, because that's what life feels like at the moment. I don't have the clarity you have. Like, at least you're at the point where you're like, I don't know what it'll look like exactly, but this is the work I'm going to do.
Yeah.
It's so nice, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you didn't go through the last 9 months.
Me
That's a
too.
win.
Well, I was thinking that as I was telling that story, I was like, like my dad would say, there but for the grace of God, guy. Like, how
What does that mean?
It means I am so lucky. Like, remember how lucky I am. So, we've talked about what's happened with you in what it's offered and the inspiration of it. But, I very much agree to not have to have gone through the same process. There but for the grace of God go I.
Yeah, and I think that's what I loved about speaking, especially FIFOs. People are like, oh, I don't want to go through that. And it's like, well, the more you learn from me speaking about my ups and downs in life and what I had to do to overcome it, like, the more you know about yourself and the more you can work on before you actually hit that tipping point.
And the difference you've made would have been really extraordinary. And we know that the risk of suicide is so high in this sector. And for people to be able to talk to you, be able to listen to you, be able to relate. Do you know the Maori saying about the sweet potato doesn't have to say how sweet it is?
No.
So I was training up on site the other day and I had this beautiful Maori woman in there, and we were doing resume training. And I said, in Australia we have tall poppy syndrome. We don't like to brag. I said, is that the same in New Zealand? She said, yeah, it's probably worse.
Yeah.
And she said it in Maori. It was so beautiful. She said, the sweet potato doesn't need to tell you how sweet it is. But she said it in Maori. So, and then I tried to repeat it and she goes, that wasn't bad. Bit more rolling of the R. But, it was a happy moment. But, that the difference that you already would have made. And then for me, as you have opened up out of this restriction, the fact you were able to say to yourself, have been able to say to yourself, I love you, I love myself, is so miraculous. Like Peter Crone would say, you've done everything you've been on this planet to do by getting to that, right? Because I heard him speak the other day and he said, oh, you might say I want to make a difference or leave a legacy or whatever. He said, that's fine if you want to do that. But actually what you're here to do, in his opinion, is to get free.
Yeah.
To get free of that BS story, of whatever that BS story is made up of,
Yeah, I think he's been really helpful. One of his quotes that sort of changed how I felt about everything, because I was like, we're at a point where we're getting the house renovated before I got sick. And so I remember like being in hospital and then we had to like can all the renovation and stop it because no one was going to be there to look at the house and make sure that all these dodgy tradies are doing
someone needs to
doing
be
what we
there.
want them to do. Know that wall is crooked.
Right.
And so put it on hold and then went back to the house and then found it really hard to get people, and then the price was going up of what we're paying. It's like, oh my God, I'm not even making money anymore because I'm bloody rehabbing. And so we're going like backwards financially. Like, oh my God. But because of Peter Crone, he talks about like what happened was meant to happen. Why? Because it happened.
Yeah.
And it's like you could be really upset that it happened.
Yeah.
You could be angry. You could feel like you were betrayed or it's not what you wanted in life. But if you stay there, you're not going to accept that it did.
Yeah.
And then if you accept that it did happen because it was supposed to, you'll understand the lessons that come from that. And I think that's like the best thing that you can take from these moments in life. And it's not to say that like the trauma that I've had is worse than other people's, not at all. But we all have our own trauma or moments in life that we go through, and it's when you accept that it's happened because it was meant to, not because you're not good enough, not because people didn't like you.
Yeah.
Once you just accept that it happened because it was supposed to, you'll take all the good that's come with it as well, all those
Yeah.
lessons that turn you into someone who's better than you were when you experienced it.
Yeah, that's right. That's very well said. I'm going to pause when I finish what I'm saying now. I'm going to pause because I want to talk to you about something that you might not want on the video.
Cool.
So I'll do the pause so Grayson can edit, and then are you comfy?
Yeah.
Okay, make sure you are. If you go, no, I don't want that bit on there, we can get rid of it because I'm going to challenge you about something. Well, I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
So I'll pause. Hold on. So you said on a video, really recent video, that you feel like you deserved your stroke.
Yeah.
And I want to challenge you.
Okay.
Are you up for me challenging you?
Go for it.
Okay. So I don't think you deserved your stroke. So you tell me if I've read it wrong. That video, you basically said it was karma for all your previous bad behaviour. All right. Tell me more about it. Do you still think you deserved it as we sit here?
Yeah.
For your bad behaviour? Karma for your bad behaviour?
Well, if we go back to that quote by Peter Crone, what's happened has happened because it was meant to happen. And if I look back at that, what's the reason? What's the meaning for it?
Yeah.
And if I look at my past and all the ways that I've mistreated people, hurt people, it's like, geez, I've got a lot of karma there. Like, if karma is real, if you believe in it, and people don't, that's cool.
Yeah.
But when I look back at those moments and, you know, the people that I've hurt, the moments that I've done things that have hurt myself, when I look at that, it's like, well, yeah, I do believe like that what happened was meant to happen.
So I think it happened. I don't know if it was meant to happen, but I want to give you my different perspective and see if it's useful for you. So I get you feel bad and guilty about things you've done wrong, and no doubt from what you've said, you did do wrong stuff years ago, right? And there was reasons for it, excuses for it, but you're very responsible and you went, no, it's fucked. I did heaps of stuff wrong, right? Yep. And as a part of that, look, the only thing I'm happy with in regards to you saying it was karma is if that allows you to forgive yourself for your previous transgressions, then that's okay. You can say it was on purpose. But if it doesn't give you anything positive, I think a different way to reframe it is, it did happen. I felt really guilty for comparing my story to yours when I said I have had a similar realisation. You're like, I'm glad you didn't have to go through what I went through. And I was like, you're so right. I'm really sorry. But the way I see what happened to you is it happened for whatever reason, but what you have got out of it is going to serve you, your family, and the world. And that's why, if one wanted to give a meaning to it, so I'm not sure if there's a reason it happened at all, but if one wanted to give a meaning to it, it's the forward positivity, not punishment for the previous negativity. Can you tell me, when you say it happened to me as punishment, does that free you of guilt of your previous transgressions?
I didn't say it happened to me because of punishment.
Ah, okay.
I said I deserved it. That doesn't mean like you're shit. You're shit. You deserve this because you're terrible.
Okay, good. So tell me more about that.
It's something that happened, and do I deserve it? Do I not deserve it? If I lean on I don't deserve it, then I'm going to be stuck in this place where it's like, this happened and I didn't want it to happen because I wasn't a person who deserved it.
Oh,
I believe it happened because it was meant to, because the person that I was, although I thought I was going in the right direction, I was putting on weight. I was getting unhealthy.
Yes.
I was going through all these parts where I could have passed away because of the lack of health I had, because I didn't feel good enough. And it's just been like really wicked for me to go through this whole process, to go through all the shit that I didn't want.
Yes.
I didn't want it at the time. I hated it while I was going through rehab and at hospital.
Yeah.
But when I look back, and because I don't feel like there's punishment, and I don't feel what was the word you used with like the memories or
so I said I saw it as something that's brought you to where you are, not as a punishment for past transgressions.
Yeah,
that's what I said.
So when I talk about those memories that I've had and the ways that I've shown up for people, I'm okay talking about the way that I've shown up.
Yeah.
That doesn't also mean that I'm batting myself or hurting myself because of it. Like, I accept who I was I've apologized to a lot of people.
Yeah,
Like
I knew you would have.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
And whether that person accepts it or not, that's up to them, because that's the way that I treated them, and they deserve to feel however they feel
Yes.
about what they've experienced in life. And so for me, like, yeah, I really do believe I deserve it. I don't believe that it's punishment for what has happened. I just believe that, like, there is karma and there could have been something else, but there wasn't. Why? Because it happened.
Why? Because
And
it
so
happened.
I, like, for me, that's just like a real cool way for me to accept that for myself, and like
Yes.
fully accept it, not accept it to a little bit where there's a little part of me that hates that it happened still.
Got it.
I love that it happened, because if it didn't, I wouldn't have lost so much weight. I wouldn't have become so much more in love with my partner, my daughters, my parents. And then shifted as well, like realize that I have to shift to the thing that I love doing, which is like the emotional work.
Yeah. So when I said how you had said you deserved it, you said it's not punishment. And that's how I heard it when you said I deserved it. I heard it's a good punishment for the prick I used to be, right? But you said it's not that. It's how you can own it so you're not a victim of it. You did whatever you did back then. You've cleaned that up as best you could. And you're right. People will do whatever they'll do, but you have authentically apologised, said sorry with your heart, and they will have taken whatever they've taken from that, but you've tried to own.
Yeah. Yeah, there have been people who've messaged me, like, I only posted that yesterday.
Yeah.
I only posted that yesterday after going to the neurologist and him telling me, you know, you're still clotted, like your
Yeah.
brain's still clotted, your throat's still clotted, and being like, damn it.
Yeah.
I thought I was moving forward with that.
Yeah.
And people like messaged and said, oh, that's a bit too heavy, that's a bit too much.
Yeah.
And it's like, it might be for you.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going through something and you don't accept it for what it is, like, that's cool. That's your life and that's how you experience it. But to tell me that I should feel a certain way or a little bit different, or not accept it, or not believe that there was like karmic events there, like, it is what it is. Like, you can believe whatever you want. I don't mind if you disagree. If you disagree, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm just at a part of life where I accept where I am.
Yeah.
And I'll explain it whether or not people connect with it.
Yeah. Well, that explanation helps me, because the main feeling I had when I read it was one of wanting to protect you from pain, right? So someone who's self-critical, I try and help other people be less. So then I go, oh, were you saying you were punishing yourself? You don't need to be punished. You're a good guy. And I think the reactions you'll get from people will be the same flavour as mine. Like, you're all right, Lachie. You didn't deserve that. Whereas when you described it now, you said, I deserved it, therefore I own it, therefore I'm not a victim, I can come out of it. So the description now makes me understand much better than the clip did, right?
Yeah.
Because I misread what you'd said as punishment.
I think, like, there's a difference. There are people who are reaching out and saying you shouldn't feel that way, and then there are people on the other side who've probably done like self-work who are like, man, that's amazing, like, your energy is ridiculous. And it's like, cool, thanks. Thank you very much. But it is what it is. Like, I think we're all going to have moments where we speak about things that don't connect with people because maybe they have a different view, or the way you've said it doesn't click with what they hear or what they read. So I don't mind. Like, no matter what we do as people who help other people, there's going to be something that doesn't click.
Oh, yeah, ain't that the truth? I think, you know, when you hit on to someone that's saying exactly what you need at the time, the magic of that, you know? So like when some people watched it and went, that's so awesome, thank you so much, it's because they're sort of vibrating at a similar frequency, and then they can get what you're trying to say in the way you're trying to say it, you know? And then you can go, good, you got what I was trying to say, you know? So it's interesting because
I don't care too, like what people say, like what they say is what they
that's
say.
so good that you don't care. I really care.
It's I think that makes sense though, because like, and that's one of the reasons of stepping away from FIFO, is because when you're in a more corporate space, you really have to care what people say and what you say, because if they take it a certain way and then they start telling people, that might impact the role that you have, the jobs that you have, and
Yeah.
you know how you're getting passed on throughout that corporate environment. So I definitely wouldn't tell people to like go out and start talking like that. It's like talk like that if you feel comfortable doing that. If it's not going to work, then don't. Like
Yeah, I
just
know.
do that in your own environment with yourself when you're writing in a book.
I know. Isn't it interesting? I have been talking on LinkedIn however the hell I've wanted for a couple of years, and that gets very mixed reaction.
It does.
And,
It does on
and
LinkedIn.
yeah, and some people have said to me exactly like you said when clients go, "Oh, we want to use you," and you go, "Haven't liked anything I've posted." All these secret people are following us, right? And even with all the weird stuff I've posted, which has been my truth, my journey, but I'll see lots of people look at my profile, so I won't get any
Yeah.
likes on it. But then I have 18 people look at my profile and go, but I've got 2 likes. So something's interesting to people. But that one of my best girlfriends said to me, why the fuck are you on LinkedIn? I said, because, like that's one avenue and I can try and break out of this strict, everyone has to look a certain way corporate mode. And she goes, you're basically just suffering, trying to work through it. She goes, why don't you just give away that and go on a different platform that's a better, right? And I'm like, no, I want to, so I'm still having that dance. It's like, should I just give that whole thing up around? I'm trying to be like a corporate rebel because I think what makes people suffer so much is what you're talking about, that restriction of the corporate world. There's so much BS, there's so much leveraging synergies, and that's what has all us suffer in the corporate world. But I think I'm fighting a losing battle, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it works. Like when I first started getting work because of LinkedIn, I'd say like 90% of the work we got was from LinkedIn. It's because I was posting about this stuff from my childhood, and people would constantly comment and say, dude, you can't share that on here. That's too heavy, or like that's too low.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's cool, but I'm gonna keep doing it. And that was really for me, so I felt comfortable in what I was sharing, because I was sharing it on like Instagram, Facebook. It's like, why not just put it on there? Like, I don't have a big business that's going to risk collapsing because I'm posting this. I'm just going to do it. And that's how speaking sort of started, because I was doing it. So I'd say, like, just trust yourself. Like, you're already a really cool person who has a cool understanding, or a lot of understanding, a depth of understanding that would really help people. It's not until people see you for who you really are that they're like, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Let's get her here. So
it's so funny. Do you know what? I said, let's pause the tape to make sure you're comfortable with it. And then we had that conversation. I said, oh, shit, it's going to be me who decides if I'm comfortable with it. Because when you said it's not punishment, I went, oh, shit, I got it wrong. I want to pause again because I want to do a thing with you, which I'm not sure if I should do, but I want to do it. So we'll pause, and again, we'll decide if we're going to. You're right with these experiments.
What are we doing?
This one's about me. This one's about me.
I feel very proud.
Ooh, I feel very proud of you.
It's awesome.
Whoa.
It's so cool.
So cool.
Cool that you get to see that version of yourself and like watch her change her face and how she feels. It's awesome, and that you gave yourself permission to even do something like that. It's amazing.
Well, I've been very frustrated and stuck and trying, and when I thought about you today, I thought, I wonder if I'll ask Lachie to work with me. And then I'm glad I did. And this is a super weird thing to say, but I definitely want to pay you, because that was a full session of what you do. It's what you do professionally, man. Like,
I'm not coaching anyone at the moment, so it doesn't matter. It's if I was on site FIFO, I would have done that with anyone I had a one-on-one with. So it is what it is. I'm just glad it happened, and like even for me, it's really cool to see someone go into that, like lean into it, feel it fully, and then feel what comes. Like, it's really wicked to know that joy comes on the other side of sadness. And you feel it, and like especially for someone like you, someone who's super colourful and outgoing, it makes sense,
doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm very grateful.
I'm very grateful. We can have a grateful off. I think I win, though.
Yeah.
I think I win. I win. I'm super grateful. Oh, my skirt's up, Lord Grayson. Oh, I'm sorry. How long was it up for? It's all right. That's fine. That's fine. So we'll decide together what we want to do with that part and whether we want to have it on the podcast, whether we want to have it as a separate thing for you.
You can choose. There's no expectation with that at all. I don't mind. It's not for that. It's just cool to do. So you just see how you feel and you make the decision.
Okay. The part before that we talked about where I said this is risky for you, but it turned out to be risky for me. Are you happy for that part to be on the podcast?
Yeah, it's cool.
I think it's good.
I'm happy for everything to be on there.
Okay.
I think it's just awesome that you did it.
Okay, awesome.
That I got to do it.
Well, I selfishly wanted it for me, but I also thought, let's show people what Lachie can do so that when you are helping people, they can see the power of what you can do and the love of what you can do, because this process you've been through is really no joke. And I love that you own every part of it, including the stroke. I get the power of that now. I wish it hadn't happened for you as a part of the journey, but that's secretly my wish.
Yeah.
You can own it.
I'll accept your wish.
Thank you, because I really mean it. And I think the difference you're going to make and you have made and then you're going to make will be exponentially powerful.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
That's so cute. I love that.
That's
awesome.
really real. That's really real, because that veneer, like when you said to me, being colourful, the stuff that I'm trying to work through, you having got to the point you've gotten, this is what I want to do, this is where my heart is, this is what is an expression for me that's not about money, not about me looking good. It's me as my heart. That is the power of the world, people that work from that, right?
Yeah.
And it's very, very rare, in my opinion, that there's not an underlying ego, not good enough, I'm doing this so people think I'm awesome, so pure, right? And that's why I was willing to have you do it. I was willing to risk it. Resistance definitely came up. I felt frightened and embarrassed. What you did was super clever by getting me to breathe and move my body. And then I just said, just stick with him, Tam. Just stick with him, because I wanted the outcome more. That's a little bit like you go, when you got frustrated, I don't want to feel like this. You go through it. That's what I felt. I was like, just stick with him.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Super hard for me to keep talking. You're very welcome, because I'm in a totally different space now. But there's a couple of things I do want to say. So, and then you tell me if there's anything else you'd like to talk about. So next Thursday, you're going to have the amazing Peter Slocum talk at a sundowner for your...
She's a legend.
Isn't she?
Yeah.
So do you know that I know Peter?
Yep.
Do you know she was on here?
Yes.
Have you listened to it yet?
No.
No. When you get a chance, have a listen. So she said, unusually, right, because she's really committed to her work, and normally when she talks it's about her work. And she said, I want to talk about me and I want people to get to know me a bit more. So
I just assumed it would be about work, so hell yeah, I'm going to listen to that.
Right? It was super brave of her. It was super generous of her. And as you'll hear on there, the contribution she makes, I'm very grateful for in the work she does. You've got your sundowner with her, and it's only $29.
Yeah.
And you get to
It's always been free. This is the first time it's cost anything to turn up.
So what happens? If I want to go, I'm going to look at your LinkedIn and see how I can book on.
Yep.
I'm going to book on, I'm going to rock up, and I'm going to hear Peter, and am I going to have a drink? Am I going to have nibbles? Am I going to chat to people?
So there'll be food there. We'll have like rolls, Subway, snacks you can have. What are they called when it's like meat and dips?
Charcuterie.
Yeah, charcuterie.
If you want to be sexy.
I was thinking delicacy or something. I'm like, I have no idea what that's called. My partner will do that.
That's right.
So
she'll
that,
know.
and then like wine, beers, also non-alcoholic beers, just in case.
Yeah.
And water if you just don't want anything.
Anything, right?
Yeah.
So I learnt about, there's a non-alcoholic beer called Heaps Normal.
Yeah.
And I was at the pub one day, and I was going up to site later that day to do some training. I thought, I can't have a beer. I'll fall asleep when I'm meant to be doing the training. And so the pub had Heaps Normal. So I had this pint of Heaps Normal, 0.05 alcohol, right? And I was like, I can have two. There's no alcohol, right? Had another one. And my son was with me and a friend. And I said, I'm a bit relaxed. And my son goes, I think you feel like it was real beer. I said, I think the link in my mind to the flavour of beer is I'm going to feel pissed. So I felt a bit pissed. So now I drink it all the time. I have this
Nice.
fake beer all the time because I don't need the piss part. I just like having a beer to relax. Anyway, I've got distracted. This happens, Lachie. It's good at happening, this one. Keep the continuity. So we've got Peter talking. Your business, of course, still exists, and Corey and other people are running that for you.
Corey and Josh. Corey does mental health first aid, speeches, one-on-ones on site, and Josh does breath work, one-on-ones, speeches on site as well.
Yeah, that breath work's very exciting. That's in your LinkedIn as well. If people want to see more of it, I reckon that'll be a secret weapon in the arsenal. Would have already been, right? That really unlocks stuff like you did with me.
That's people can go through something that they feel without ever having to talk about it, which is like very powerful.
Very powerful. You literally have an offer where people can do what you did with me. Isn't there a 6-week program coming up that people can do with you?
There was, but that was for FIFO. So I'm stepping away from that and that's staying with FIFO Mental Health Group.
Okay.
If anyone wants to work together, they're more than welcome to just reach out.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And that program that you had promoted is still happening and your colleagues are going to look after it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so very excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was... Yeah, I was going to say it was very cool, but it's a real understatement, so...
For what?
I was going to say the talking to you was very cool, but it's total understatement because you basically healed me, so that's like a bit of a next level. Podcast was very cool and the healing was thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
As a way of having our first coffee.